Using the same basic words over and over can make your answers sound boring and it can hold your score back. In this video, we'll look at 10 overused words and I'll show you simple to advanced alternatives you can start using right away to sound more natural and confident. Let's start with one of the most overused words, good. Almost every IELTS student says it again and again. But depending on the situation, there are better words you can use. For something casual and everyday, you can say nice. It's light and simple, and it works well when you're talking about food, places, or daily activities. For example, I visited a new cafe last weekend. The atmosphere was really nice, and I enjoyed the coffee. If you want to sound a bit more enthusiastic, go with great. This word shows more excitement, but it's still natural and easy to use. For example, I went to a concert last month, and it was great. The performers were really talented, and the crowd was so lively. When something really stands out, you can use excellent. This sounds more formal and strong, perfect for things like books, movies, or achievements. For instance, I recently read a novel called The Midnight Library, and I think it was excellent. The story was unique, and the characters were very relatable. And if you want to go even further, try outstanding. This one is powerful. It makes whatever you're describing sound truly impressive. For example, I attended a photography exhibition last week, and the work on display was outstanding. So instead of just saying good, now you've got a whole set of options you can choose depending on how strong you want your answer to be. Let's move on to its opposite, bad. Another word that students use way too often is bad. Just like good, it makes your answers sound too simple. Let's look at some better alternatives. If you want something a little softer, you can say poor. This works well when you're talking about quality, like service, performance, or results. For example, the customer service at that shop was poor. I had to wait for almost 30 minutes. If the situation was worse, you can say awful. This word shows you really didn't like the experience. For instance, I tried a new restaurant last week, but the food was awful. It had no flavor at all. When something is very negative, you can use terrible. It's a strong word that works for experiences, weather, or even mistakes. For example, the traffic yesterday was terrible. I was stuck on the road for 2 hours. And if you want to go really strong, try appalling. This is an advanced word that shows you were shocked by how bad something was. For example, the conditions in that old building were appalling. It was dirty and unsafe. So instead of always saying bad, you can choose the word that matches how negative the situation really was. Let's look at another word. Another word that comes up again and again is interesting. Students use it for almost everything, but there are so many better options. For something that really catches your attention, you can say fascinating. For example, I recently watched a documentary about space exploration, and it was fascinating. I learned so many new things. If it holds your attention and keeps you focused, try captivating. For example, I saw a play last month, and the storyline was so captivating that I didn't even realize 2 hours had passed. When you want to sound a bit more advanced, you can use intriguing. This works well when something is unusual or makes you curious. For instance, I read an article about artificial intelligence, and I found the topic really intriguing. And if you want to sound very academic, go with thought-provoking. This one shows that something made you think deeply. For example, the speech I listened to yesterday was thought-provoking. It made me reflect on how we can protect the environment. So instead of always saying interesting, you now have words that show different shades of meaning depending on how strong or deep the interest is. Let's move on to the next word. Like is probably one of the most common words in IELTS speaking. Students use it for hobbies, food, activities, you name it. But if you want to sound more natural, try these alternatives. The easiest one is enjoy. It's simple and fits almost any casual answer. For example, I really enjoy listening to music in the evening. It helps me relax after a long day. If you want to sound a little more formal, go with appreciate. This works well when you're talking about something you value or admire. For instance, I really appreciate quiet time in the morning because it helps me focus for the day. Another option is be fond of. This sounds friendly and shows you like something in a gentle way. Example, I'm quite fond of playing badminton with my friends at the weekend. And finally, for something stronger, you can use be keen on. This one shows you have a real interest or passion. For example, I'm really keen on photography. I love capturing moments and editing the pictures afterwards. So instead of always saying like, you've got different options to match the level of interest you want to express. Now let's talk about big. Another word students repeat a lot is big. It's easy, but there are more interesting ways to say it. A simple alternative is large. It works well in both casual and formal answers. For example, I live in a large city, so public transportation is really important. If you want something stronger, use huge. This shows that something is much bigger than usual. For example, last weekend I went to a huge shopping mall. It had hundreds of stores and restaurants. Another option is massive. This one is very natural in everyday English and adds emphasis. For instance, the concert was massive, with thousands of people attending. And for something really extreme, you can say enormous. This makes the size sound impressive or overwhelming. For example, the library in my university is enormous. You can find books on almost any subject. So instead of always saying big, you've got several words that can make your answers more vivid and precise. Let's move on to the next word. Just like big, the word small is used too often. Let's look at some better alternatives. The easiest one is tiny. It's simple and makes something sound really small. For example, I stayed in a tiny apartment when I visited Tokyo, but it was very cozy. Another option is miniature. This is useful when you're describing models, collections, or objects that are made small on purpose. For instance, I bought a miniature model of the Eiffel Tower as a souvenir. You can also say compact. This word is great when you want to describe something small but practical. Example, my car is compact, so it's easy to park in crowded places. And for something extremely small, go with minuscule. This is a strong, advanced word. For example, the chance of rain tomorrow is minuscule, so I'm not going to bring an umbrella. So instead of always saying small, you now have different words that can make your speaking answers more precise and natural. Let's move on to the next word. Another word students often repeat is important. It's useful, but if you use it too much, it can sound basic. Here are some better options. First, you can say significant. This is perfect when you want to highlight something meaningful. For example, getting good grades was significant for me because it helped me win a scholarship. Another choice is crucial. This word is stronger and shows that something is necessary. For instance, it's crucial to manage your time well if you want to prepare effectively for the IELTS exam. You can also use vital. It has a similar meaning to crucial but sounds even more serious. Example, water is vital for our survival, so protecting natural resources is essential. And finally, there's essential. This one is excellent for academic or formal answers. For example, teamwork is essential in most workplaces because it allows people to share ideas and solve problems together. So instead of repeating important, you can choose a word that shows just how necessary or meaningful something really is. Let's move on to the next word. Happy is another word that comes up a lot in IELTS speaking. Let's look at some other ways to say it. A simple one is pleased. This works well in everyday answers. For example, I was really pleased when I passed my driving test on the first try. If you want to sound a bit stronger, use delighted. It shows that you were very happy about something. Example, I was delighted to hear that my best friend got into her dream university. Another great option is thrilled. This word sounds very natural in conversation and shows a high level of excitement. For instance, I was thrilled when my team won the championship match. And for something even stronger, you can say overjoyed. This one shows extreme happiness. Example, I was overjoyed when I found out I had been accepted to study abroad. So instead of just saying happy, you've got a range of words that can help you express different levels of joy. Let's move on to the next word. Just like happy, the word sad is used way too often. Here are some better ways to say it. A simple option is upset. This is common in daily conversation. For example, I was upset when I missed the bus and arrived late for my class. Another choice is disappointed. This works well when something doesn't meet your expectations. Example, I was disappointed when my favorite cafe closed down. If you want to make the feeling stronger, you can say miserable. For instance, I felt miserable during the rainy week because I couldn't go outside at all. And if you want to express really deep sadness, use heartbroken. Example, I was heartbroken when my childhood pet passed away. So instead of always saying sad, you now have words that can show different levels of emotion. Let's move on to the next word. One of the biggest traps in IELTS speaking is using very all the time. We've already talked about words like good, bad, big, and small. Now, here's the problem. Many students just put very in front of them. Very good, very bad, very big, very small. But the truth is, you don't need very at all. Remember, instead of very good, you can say excellent. Instead of very bad, you can say terrible. Instead of very big, just say huge. And instead of very small, you can say tiny. So, think of very as a warning sign. If you're about to use it, stop and ask yourself, do I already know a stronger word? That one switch will make your IELTS speaking much more natural. Remember, it's not about using the fanciest vocabulary. It's about showing variety and choosing the right word for the right situation. Try practicing these alternatives in your daily conversations, so when exam day comes, they'll come out naturally. And if you want to sound even more natural in IELTS speaking, check out my video on filler words. It'll show you how to buy thinking time without losing fluency.